Everyone, it's Lucy from My Crazy Craft Life, and I am here today with the Scrapping for Less April Flavor of the Month card kit. I am using the banana split level, and I actually decided, since I love this kit so much, that I was going to do one card from each sketch from each collection. So I'm actually making two separate videos because otherwise it would be like an hour long, even with editing and cutting a bunch of stuff out. But this video will have collections 1 and 2. So the first collection is collection 1, and it has that cute pink and Maine stamp set. And I realized after I started making this first card, because I had an idea that I wanted to do for it, and I sat down and I started making it, and I realized I didn't actually press record. But you can see it up there on the left, and then I use one of the images from the stamp set, and I just fussy cut that out. It was just the pair of rain boots, and it was super easy to cut out. But I just followed the sketch. I used the die that came with the kit to make some sprigs with scrap paper of some green scrap paper that I had there. And then I used ribbon from my stash. I used the sentiment from the stamp set, and I heat embossed it. So again, it's a really simple card. I just used all the pattern papers that came with the kit, and then those couple other things. So I really love how this turned out. I wanted to make sure my heat gun was heated up because I had already had everything on there and glued down, and I didn't want it to warp it too much. So if you heat up your gun for a few minutes before you actually get in there, it will help with the warping and stuff. And I didn't really pop anything up on this. I wanted to make sure that it was a pretty flat card. And then I used my Spectrum Noir sparkle pen on all of the flowers, and I just put it on all of the flowers and the sprigs that were there. So that was the first card that I made. I really, really liked it. Now, this one, I actually went to Hobby Lobby near my house on Wednesday. They had a bunch of Prismacolor pencils sets that were on clearance for $4.99, so I picked up a couple of those. And then they had this Faber-Castell water colored pencil set, and I've really never worked with those, and it was $3.99, so I really couldn't pass it up for 12 pencils. So I decided I wanted to get that, and I wanted to use it on this. And then I am not by any stretch of the imagination good at this. I have a lot of practicing to do with it, but I used some Cason watercolor paper, stamped the image, and then colored it with the watercolor pencils. I really liked them. I thought they worked really well, but like I said, I still need a lot of work with it. But this is the card that I was mentioning that I really did not like because I ended up creating 5 cards. But I left this in here because I was having such a hard time trying to think about what and how I wanted this card put together, and I just could not come up with something that I liked, at least not with the colors that I used. So I ended up using the colored pencils again and kind of wanted to create a watercolor background, and it just looked like a little kid colored it with crayon, and I did not like it at all. So this card I did not like, so I ended up actually making 5 cards for this collection just because, I don't know, I didn't like this card, and I left it in here just so you can kind of see that, we all have days where we make things that we're not exactly thrilled with, and we all do things that it's not perfect and it's not amazing, and everything is not 1, 2, 3, easy, here we go. So you can see how many times I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with this, and I just never could. I really probably should have just scrapped it, put it on the side, and moved on, but I was determined that I was going to do something with this. So on the sketch, they had banners that went on the side of the circle, or I guess next to the circle, on how the sketch is actually created, and I decided I didn't want to do that. So I ended up, in the stamp set, there's some raindrops. So I decided I was going to put the raindrops down the side, kind of like making it like the banners, you know, to have that element in there. And then I used my glossy accents on the raindrops and the water puddle that is there. I did pop this up on some fun foam and stick it in there. Again, I don't know. I like I said, I just think the card looked like a little kid made it, but whatever. It is what it is. I made the card. It'll be fine. I will figure out a use for it somewhere. But like I said, I just had a really difficult time with this particular card. And it wasn't the kit, it was just I couldn't get the colors and the combinations and somehow that I liked it. But I did, like I said, end up keeping it. I use VersaFine Black Onyx ink for the sentiment, and then I use Lawn Fawn, I believe it's Manatee. It's a gray color for the raindrops, and like I said, there I'm putting the glossy accents on it. I finally have spring here in the Chicagoland area, so it's a beautiful day out. So if you hear some craziness outside, it's because I opened all of my windows. But there's the finished card. So then the next card, I was trying to kind of figure out what I wanted to do, and I really liked that kind of banner, I guess you want to say, that was on one of the pattern papers. But I didn't want to cover it all up by making the square or rectangle so large that you couldn't see it, so I just kind of shortened that down. And then I was trying to figure out how I was going to put the banner and all of that kind of stuff on it. You know, I know they talk a lot about the sketches, but the sketches are there just for inspiration. It's not that you have to follow it to an exact T. A lot of these I did just because the papers are just amazing with this collection, and I thought it was really simple to put together cards with the sketches and the pattern paper, and I just thought they were super cute when they did all get together. But like I said, you don't have to follow it exactly. I was just using it as a guide to make sure. I used one of the little sentiment boxes from the card kit, and I popped that up on some fun foam after I layered it. And then, of course, I had to use my sparkle pen on this one as well. But here I was just using some twine from my stash to put on there. I just love that pattern paper of the little boots with the flowers in it, and I wanted that in there, so I kind of found a space that I could stick it in there. And then I popped up the card front on there, and then I put the whole panel on just a white card base. And then there's my sparkle pen that I did with all of the flowers. Like I said, I really like this. Now you can see there I colored a whole bunch of images, and don't ask me because I had the pattern paper in front of me when I was coloring, but the colors that I used to color does not match this pattern paper. It's fine, I'll use the images on something else later, but after I colored all of them and I was trying to look at them, I was thinking like, what were you even thinking when you were creating this or coloring these? So on this one I used a couple scrap papers that I had, some green and some black, just to do the background on there. And again, I was just following the sketch. I used a scallop die for the bottom of that. I used some twine from my stash just to put around the top there, give it a little bit of dimension and something a little extra. I really thought these sketches worked well with the patterns, and it was really easy to create different things. I used another little sentiment square or rectangle that was in the pattern paper for that top. And then I used the sentiment stamps from the sentiment stamp set that is part of the kit, the banana split level, with that extra thing. And then I used some of the Kennedy Gray sequins that came with the kit for this collection. Again, I used my Spectrum Noir Sparkle pen on all of my flowers that were in there. And those are those two cards. So, like I said, I really, really enjoyed this collection. I thought the pattern papers were great, and I thought everything just coordinated so well. So here's the fifth card that I went back after I did not like that other one, and I was going to use the sketch from that to create another one. And one of the pattern papers had this kind of like corner collage of flowers, and I really liked that, and I thought it would go perfect with how that sketch ended up. So I cut out that grouping of the flowers, and I didn't want to completely cover it up though because the circle in the sketch was so large, so I just used a smaller circle. Like I said, this is just there for guidance. It's not necessarily on what everything has to be. And then I used another one of the sentiments that kind of came with the pattern paper. I layered it up on some black cardstock. I used a piece of green cardstock from my stash just to finish up that pattern on there. And then this one was actually supposed to be the circle, but as you can see, I didn't end up using it because I used the rectangle. But I still made the banners with it, and I thought that it turned out super cute. I was much happier with this one, so that's why there's 5 in this collection. After I put everything down and figured everything out, I was having like I said, a hard time with the tape for some reason. I don't know what was going on there. And I was trying to figure out where to put everything. But there's that final card. The next collection, collection 2, has the Sunny Studio, and I loved the little bunnies and tulips, and those are the 4 cards that I made with the sketches. And this one was kind of crazy because I started doing all of the stamping, and then I realized that I wanted to make a couple different things. But one of the things I wanted to do is I wanted to make a background with these tulips. But then after I made the background, I said, okay, well, that's not going to go with any of the sketches that are part of this. So it's fine. I'm going to keep it. I'm going to use it on a different card. And then I was making another piece where I just stamped tulips everywhere, all different directions, going all over the place onto a piece of cardstock. And then I will end up coloring it, and I end up using this on a couple of the cards. And it really turned out cute because I know it kind of looks like a hot mess when I'm looking at it right now. But like I said, I really do love how it ended up turning out. So then after I finished up the stamping, before I started doing the coloring, I had this idea of what I wanted to do for one of the sketches for one of the cards with the one with the circle, the large circle. And the other thing that I did was I made a bunch of paper from the washi tape. I took some cardstock, I lined it up, the washi tape, just kept putting the strips down. I lined up the pattern so that I could kind of create another paper to use, pattern paper. This is a Lawn Fawn pattern paper that came with this set, and I really love it and think it's cute, but it only had a couple of colors. It had the blue, the pink, and the green, and I just wanted something else. The pink does have a little orange in it, so that was nice to be able to use that, and you can use it for different things. But so I created this yellow paper from the washi tape. I have so much washi tape, and I never use it. I don't know why, but I just really don't. So when I get it like this, I try to use it up as much as I can. So that was the panel or the card base that I am making because I had this idea in my head of what I wanted to do before I started the coloring, and I didn't want to forget it or forget what I was thinking about exactly and how to do it and what I wanted to do with it. So I just used some alcohol markers to do the coloring. I used a bunch of different ones. I had some off-brand alcohol markers, I had chameleons, I had spectrum noirs. I was using all different ones to do the coloring in this. And then I cut out most of the coloring with the things because I am by no means an expert colorer, so we don't need to all sit around and watch me try to figure out what I'm doing here. And like I said, there's nothing special with what I do. And in particular, I really didn't do a lot with these because the tulips particularly are smaller images. So I did use 2 different colors for each tulip bulb, and then 2 colors for the leaves and the stem of the flower. But like I said, there was certainly nothing special here with what I was doing. But this was the background that, like I said, I ended up not using because it doesn't match any of the sketches. But I do like the background, and I will figure out how to use it for something else in the future. But I like to do a bunch of images, and I color a bunch of things, and then I just keep them, and I stick them with the stamp set, and then that way, if I want to make something, I already have some that are already created, and they're ready to go. So I decided on the inside of the card, through the little circle, I was going to make a scene. And so I just used the cloud stencil that I have. I used some green scrap paper that I had just to make some grass. I used broken china distressed oxide ink for the clouds. And then here I just started trying to figure out what I wanted to do and where to put all of the images. I knew I wanted to put some foam tape on one of the bunnies and have it kind of pop out through the front of the card. So I did that. And then I had the sentiment stamp set. I was just figuring out what stamps I wanted to use. So on the front, when you look through it, it says hello spring or happy spring, and then when you open the card, it just says hello. So I thought that card turned out super cute. I really, really liked it. And I did put some sparkle, Spectrum Noir sparkle on all of the tulips bulbs. So this is where I was coloring the crazy background that just had the tulips everywhere in all different positions and all over the place. And so I was going to use that for one of the sketches as one of the panels for it. And like I said, I loved how this ended up turning out. I thought it was super cute. So this is sketch 4. I used the scrap green paper that I have again for with this Brig die cut just for that. I used the yellow washi tape paper background that I made for the little circle, and then I just used some ribbon from my stash that I had, and then the pattern paper from there. So I think this card turned out super cute. I ended up using the sentiment stamp set that came with the kit for the banana split level 2 for the sentiment. But you can see I'm just kind of piecing everything together there. There was, like I said, nothing crazy or special about any of these cards. I really just followed the sketches for the majority of them, but I just love how they all turned out. I think I love this kit because there's just so many different things that you can do with it. You can use the stamps, you can use the pattern papers, you can use just everything that's part of it. I just think it's amazing that you just have so many options for different things with this. And then with the new papers that they're sending each month with the My Favorite Thing papers, you have so many card bases, and the majority of them are colored. They send 2 white ones, but the majority of them are colored. So it's awesome that you just get so many different things out of one kit. So that's one of my favorites. So here I'm on to my next card trying to figure out what I am doing. And I believe I am making sketch 2. And I'm making some more of the yellow paper with the washi tape for the background or for the little square that's in there. And just figuring out what I want to use and how I want to use it. And I do end up using the other piece of the crazy tulip background that I made. There I was just using the scallop die that I have to create that panel. And then I ended up I went back and forth, I think, with what I was going to do. I think I ended up staying with the green. You know, it's funny sometimes when I do this, I end up making it and pulling it apart and then putting it back together. And again, I'm just like with the washi tape, when I get a lot of these little embellishments, I don't know why, I just don't use them when I'm making cards. I kind of stick to nouveau drops or sequins or things like that. I just don't go in and pull out the embellishments. So on them, I try to make sure that I use the embellishments that come with these kits so that I'm not just keep collecting and collecting and collecting them. Because as much as I like to collect craft supplies, I'm trying to really get to the point of using everything, because keeping it in a box because it looks pretty just isn't really doing anything for anyone. And, part of this creating these crafting things is to hopefully spread a little joy and sunshine in people's lives, I guess. And when they're sitting in a box in my craft room, they're not really doing that. So I want to make sure that's like my new goal I had a couple years ago, that I'm going to use what I have and try to de-stash some stuff and just use it and get it out there and get it out into the world and spread some happiness with some cool looking cards. So I wanted to make sure, like I said, that I used these embellishments. So I ended up using the flower and two of the butterflies, and I just put a happy birthday sentiment in the inside. Used some Spectrum Noir sparkle pen, and that is the end of that. Really, like I said, following the sketch, pretty simple. Nothing crazy going on here. The next card that I'm making, I'm not sure. Oh, the next card is the sketch number one, and I was just going through the pattern paper trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and then I thought like, oh, that'll be cute if I use that as kind of a, I don't know, the base to put all of the tulips on, using the banner that there, instead of using it as a sentiment, to put a sentiment on. I just used it to line up all of the tulips, as to kind of make, I guess not exactly a scene, but to just add some elements to the card and to the sketch. So I thought that turned out really cute. And I used my couple little bunnies that I had, like I said, already colored and stuff. And then I used the sentiment from the sentiment stamp set that's included with the kit. And that is me just trying to put everything together and taping it down. I use, different types of adhesive as I'm going through. You can see my desk is always a mess because I change my mind 15 times. I do use that lash wooden embellishment, the butterfly, with this. And I use the sentiment, bloom where you are planted. And I popped up the kind of lone little bunny that was sitting over off to the side. And then I used some sequins that came with the kit. And that is that. So those are all the cards that I made with the collection 1 and 2 from the April Scrapping for Less kit. If you want to see 3 and 4, I will link it to this video. And thanks for joining me. I hope everyone has a